Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the Observer Connects with our live webcast. My name is Larry Lee. I am president and publisher of the Observer Media Group, and I want to thank you all for joining us on this very important discussion. This is part of a series that we will be producing called Coping with COVID, how the coronavirus is impacting the African American community. And today's discussion will be regarding distance learning and our African American students being left behind. This will be a fast-moving, fast-paced show. We will wrap up about 10:45. If you make sure that you are participating on the side, you should see a chat area where participants are able to enter in questions and comments. We will provide an opportunity for those comments to be addressed to the panelists as well too. So feel free to log in and join us and enjoy this conversation. For a plug, let me make sure and let you know that obviously the Observer has been publishing in Sacramento for 57 years. So these are challenging times for the newspaper industry, but we welcome everyone's support. So please don't hesitate to subscribe to our print product or get our email blast, which are free every day, or subscribe to our text alerts as well. So we'll be putting some of those things in the chat side as well there too. So with that, we will start with a video that will help summarize today's subject matter.
The COVID-19 pandemic has altered public education in California for the foreseeable future, as school districts in the region have begun distance learning with their students and families. However, homeschooling has been beset with labor problems and thousands of students who are yet without the necessary equipment such as Chromebooks and internet access to utilize distance instruction. Additionally, parents and student advocates have expressed concerns about the distance learning plans or lack thereof by many school systems. In the April 23rd edition of the Sacramento Observer newspaper, correspondent Fahiza Alim outlined the challenges many of California's school districts face with educating their students during this stay-at-home environment. Sacramento districts such as the Sacramento City Unified School District, Twin River School District, and Fortune School of Education handed out thousands of Chromebooks to their students over the past few weeks to equip them with some of the tools. Sacramento Regional Transit has also teamed up with the California State Transportation Agency and the City of Sacramento to turn buses into free wireless hotspots in communities with limited high-speed internet access. But as parents face the daunting challenges of staying at home with their children, the greater concern is what type of curriculum and support systems can school districts create to avoid the coronavirus education slump.
All right, and we have a wonderful panel that is going to participate in this discussion. First is Dr. Margaret Fortune. She is the president and CEO of Fortune School, a network of K through 12 public charter schools here in Sacramento, which she founded to close the African American achievement gap. Dr. Fortune has been an education advisor to 2 California governors, and she is secretary treasurer of the California State National Action Network, a national civil rights organization. David Gordon is the Sacramento County Superintendent of Schools. He holds a BA from Brandeis University and an EDM and Certificate of Advanced Study in Educational Administration from Harvard University. Sacramento County Office of Education is one of 58 county offices of education here in California. SCOE provides technical assistance, curriculum and instructional support, staff development, legal and financial advice, and oversight to Sacramento County schools. They also direct more than 30,000 children and adults and provides support services to more than 246,000 students. Last but not least is Darrell White Sr., who is chair of the Black Parallel School Board. Believing education is a civil right, Darrell currently advocates for parents seeking educational equity for their children as chair of the Black Parallel School Board. The Black Parallel School Board is a community organization developed to work parallel to Sacramento Area School District boards. Also, Mr. White is a member of the Sacramento City Unified School District's African American Achievement Task Force that has the responsibility to provide advice to the Board of Superintendent on improving the personal, social, and academic outcomes of African American students. So thank you all for joining us. Please make sure that your mics are no longer muted. And I would like to make sure and get each participant's view on the impact that the coronavirus is having on African American students. We'll start with Dr. Fortune, if you wouldn't mind kind of sharing us from your perspective the challenges that we're facing during this time.
Thank you, Larry, and I really appreciate you bringing this topic. I think it's an important topic for African American families, for the Sacramento community, and really for the state and the country. African American students are the lowest performing subgroup of students other than students with special needs. So, and that's when school is traditionally in session. That's why we came to the Sacramento County Board of Education to create a network of charter schools to close the African American achievement gap by getting kids ready for college, starting in kindergarten. So now what we have is a situation where models that were designed to be classroom-based models are now really quickly becoming distance learning models. What parents should be looking at now is, we're now preparing for the summer. Summer is around the corner. You should have a robust distance learning program. It is entirely possible that school districts and charter schools and private schools put together at this point a program for you in that way. That means that you should have the technology you need. For our students, it's Chromebooks. School systems are passing out or should be, passing out hotspots if you need internet access. And it's also entirely possible for school systems at this point to have put together a comprehensive academic program that is representative of what students would have gotten had school still been in session. For Fortune School, we started that on March 24th, and it continues. We have a very clear platform and that we are delivering our academic program through, and that's Google Classroom. We've provided training to teachers and to parents on how to use it. And our teachers are engaging students through Google Hangouts, through office hours. Most of our academic delivery is through video. So our teachers in each academic subject provide 3 videos a week, along with 3 assignments. And then they have office hours. And this is in English, language arts, mathematics, science, music, art, physical education, spoken word. We are also offering a program that allows for a sense of community. Every morning, our principals have morning meeting from 7:45 to 8 a.m. Using Facebook Live. Our use of Facebook and other social media has gone way up. Every morning at 10 a.m., we do a yoga and fitness fun with our yoga instructors. Our approach has been to take our best talent, our best teacher talent, and put it in front of our entire school system. Now what we're doing is looking around the corner to say, what is our summer programming? What is that going to look like? I highly recommend parents look at a program called MobyMax and another program called Reading Eggs. MobyMax is a program that you usually have to have a subscription to, that is now free, that is designed to close achievement gaps. What the NWEA, which is a nationally norm reference test, is saying that they released a study that says that they expect that in addition to the regular seasonal slide that you have during the summer, there's going to be an additional academic slide, a COVID-19 gap, if you will, and it will be particularly acute in mathematics. This system, MobyMax, is a part of the regular academic programming for Fortune School. And the reason that we selected it is because it is computer-based, it's standards aligned, and students can do it on their own. And it provides metrics on student progress to both parents and teachers. And if students stay on it long enough, they can make up grade levels in a year, several grade levels in a year. Black parents have to be prepared. And if your school system isn't doing it, then they have to seek it elsewhere.
Sure. All right. Thank you, Dr. Fortune. Mr. Gordon, if you could share with us from your perspective, just a brief overview from your perspective on how the COVID-19 is impacting students and school districts.
Thank you. And thank you, Larry, and the Observer for sponsoring this broadcast. Very much appreciated. First, let me just give a little background on our county and our school districts. We have 13 school districts in the county, and they range in size from about 64,000 students in the Elk Grove district down to about 300 students in the Alberta district. So contrary to what people might imagine, we have rural districts, we have people living on islands down on the Delta, so we run the gamut of capability to deliver distance learning. All of our districts are delivering distance learning. They're getting better as they do it, but it's a new experience for many of our teachers and our school system in delivering that, and they will get better at it. They're working very hard to deliver instruction, to make the appropriate devices, Chromebooks, hotspots, available to students, but there will be gaps. There are gaps. And one of our biggest concerns is that many of our neediest students are the ones most likely to fall behind and be shortchanged, and will need to have catch-up opportunities, not only in the summer, but as we start the new school year. And many people are asking, well, what will the new school year look like? Different people are saying different things. And I wanted to let people know we have a task force which has representatives from all of our school districts working very closely with the public health officials to try to come up with a plan to see if and how students could come back to the regular school experience when the fall semester begins. And many of you are well aware that school now starts in many of our districts the second, third, fourth week of August. The only district that still starts in September is the Sacramento Unified School District. So this group will be coming out with recommendations, and I just wanted to share with everyone the priorities behind putting this plan together. Number one, and first and foremost, is that we want to make sure all of our children, all of our employees, and all of our families continue to protect their personal health and safety of our young people and our families and our employees is the number one priority. So we depend very heavily on the advice of Dr. Kassiri, who is our county public health officer. She is a participant on our task force, and we spent lots and lots of time with her over the past several weeks and months. She has been invaluable in guiding us around the health issues. But also, I just wanted to mention the other guiding principles that we have in putting together our approach. Number one, as Dr. Fortune mentioned, is quality instruction. We have to be able to push out the highest quality instruction. Secondly, is a commitment to equity in making sure that all of our young people have access to the same quality of instruction. Thirdly, and I think this is very important as well, is we want to approach wellness with our schools. Many of our young people and their parents have been shut up in their homes for weeks at a time. Many of our children are missing their experience with their friends. We want to be sensitive to that. We want to partner with our community And most of all, we want to make sure that we learn and improve our ability to deliver programs. Finally, I'll just say, I fully expect that if and when schools are able to reopen in person, it will not be anything like the regular school experience. It will probably be some sort of alternate days of children going to school. But most of all, we want to make sure that if parents are not comfortable from a safety standpoint sending their children back to school, there is an option for a strong distance learning program until such time as they may be comfortable sending their children back.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Gordon. I appreciate it. Mr. White, if you could share with us from your perspective your views on the challenges that families and school districts are facing.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I appreciate being asked to participate in this particular webcast. The Black Parallel School Board, as you know, works with parents, and obviously if there are issues in families, we get those phone calls. I do believe African American children are being left behind. They were being left behind long before COVID. And so there's no other expectation for us but to understand that they're being left behind again. I was in Western Placer County, specifically at Placer Union High School in 2015 with a student teacher. And I heard a student asking for a brand new laptop because she had lost hers. And I discovered that Placer Union High School had given every student a laptop, all books. They had no need for books because all the books were in the laptop. All other student instructional resources were in the laptop. And I say that to reflect on the kind of schism we're talking about in terms of where African American kids are. Now let's take Placer Union High School and let's just think how they were able to make a transition to distance learning. Kids were already doing it. And so for them to make that transition was very, very, very easy. And in many of our districts in Sacramento, teachers were using cards on a sign-up basis. And students were really struggling trying to take the end of the year assessments because of our lack of computer skills. These things didn't go away just because COVID arrived. There's still issues out there that still have to be resolved. I mean, hotspots are great, but families need direct access. They need equipment. And when we say gaps, we mean some have and some don't. Even within those communities that are distressed, those gaps still exist. I work with student teachers, and CTC has made it very clear to us that those student teachers that are teaching synchronously, meaning direct instruction to students by a vehicle such as Zoom or Google Meet, meets the standards for student teachers to get a credential. Anything less than that, they can't get a credential. They have to get, at the end of the year, a variable term waiver. So we know, and it's clear what CTC believes is the best kind of instruction that we can provide to students. And so that creates other kinds of concerns. Our teachers right now are struggling with distance learning in terms of understanding how it works, making transitions to Zoom and being comfortable. And so there's still training that has to happen there. Parents have found themselves in this whole scheme as the number one educator within this homeschool relationship, because there's so much time that they now have to commit to their children. And if they have more than one child, man, the amount of time that parents have to devote to their children is tremendous. So we have to find ways to resolve those kinds of issues. The technical issues are there. Parents still have issues getting into Zoom or getting resources from the other kinds of learning packages. They're having problems finding resources, and this is just not one school district. We're talking about many school districts in our city that are having these concerns. There are some bright spots. I like what's going on over at Leah Tata Floyd. They got Chromebooks 2 years ago because of our advocacy, that we believe that the lowest performing schools needed to have those computers. They got lost for about a year, but they finally showed up on their campus, and they've had the opportunity to use them. So when COVID hit, their students were already ready and prepared to work in this new environment. And talking to their principal, this 70-75% participation K-6. That's phenomenal from what we've been seeing in other places, except probably Fortune, but we're glad that that particular school is getting those kinds of numbers. That's telling us that there are ways to get this thing done. But we got to deliver the resources. We got to deliver the training to their staffs. We got to deliver the training to our parents if we're going to make the kind of difference we need to. And I am really tremendously concerned. The big concern I have is this is where we're going to be in August and September. And so there are lessons learned right now. And we need to take those lessons and put them into good use and come up with the programming, come up with the planning necessary to move forward.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So hopefully we can move quickly. It is, I want to be very mindful of our time on the show. So what I'd like to do now is we'll run a quick commercial that will just kind of give us a little bit of a break here. And then when we come back, I'd like to make sure that we get from each of you what you feel what are some of the solutions that we need to look at? Are there some best practices that we can look at, both from the school, from the teacher, and from the home perspective as well too? So we'll take a quick break and come right back.
My grandma always says a closed mouth doesn't get fed. Open your mouth, raise your voice, and seize the opportunity to ensure our communities receive the funding we deserve by making sure you and your loved ones get counted in the census. By opening our mouths and counting ourselves, we're speaking on behalf of all of us. Our elders in need of health care, our families that need affordable housing, even our children's education. When it comes to the census, our numbers matter. Visit californiacensus.org to learn more about participating in the census.
Great. Welcome back to our discussion about distance learning and the challenges that are facing the African American community. Also, I'd like to make sure that our participants are being involved with this discussion. There's a chat area where you can add comments and questions. We will try and make sure we create a space for those questions to be asked of some of the participants. Also want to make sure that you are aware that there are a few survey questions we would like to get from our audience as well too. They are pretty quick and pretty easy. I think our screen will either pop them up or they'll show up on the chat room to make sure that you can be involved in the discussion, and so we can get a sense of our audience and our community and feelings related to this subject matter. Okay, there we go. There are the distance learning questions. Very simply, do you have a child in your home that's now homeschooling? What type of school does your child attend? Is it a district-run school or a public school or a charter school or other? And I think there's a third question as well too. But if you can add your comments so we can get a sense of your feelings from home as well too. So going back to the subject matter, you all unpacked a lot during that introduction. What should distance learning look like for African American students from the different perspectives, from the school district, from the teacher's view, as well as from the home? I know Mr. White, you kind of alluded to that as well too, but I'll ask first Mr. Gordon if you can say from the school's perspective, as we are trying to figure this out, what are some best practices that you've seen that parents should be looking for from a school district or from their school in regards to distance learning?
Well, first of all students should have a workable device that they can use, and they should have good internet connectivity. I know many of the private companies are working with the city and working with the state. We sent a letter several weeks ago on behalf of all of the superintendents in the county, recommending that for the next 60 or 90 days, internet access just be open, that it be free. So it doesn't matter which kind of device you have, you could connect. I don't know that that will ever happen, but I think that's a clear prerequisite, as was mentioned by Darrell White. Secondly, I think a clear platform of instruction, as Dr. Fortune mentioned, and I really want to give her a shout out for her distance learning model. At her request, we have shared it with all of our 13 school districts so that they can benefit from the fine job she's done and her staff has done in creating that. As I said, all of our districts are working hard to perfect their distance learning models, but realistically, that will take time. And if we end up with a hybrid model of some children going to school for part of the week and depending on distance learning the rest of the time, we will have to perfect that even further. But people will work really hard on that. But the basics of the equipment and the connectivity has to be assured for every one of our kids.
Wonderful. Well, Dr. Fortune, Mr. Gordon teed you up pretty good there in regards to the model that you are doing. From your perspective, what should it look like? I know you alluded to some of this at the beginning, some of the things that you're doing. It sounds like it's not just about, giving some, handouts and things like that to kids while they are at home, but it sounds like you have somewhat of a full program. If you can kind of share with our audience some of the things that you're doing, and from your perspective, what are some of the things that you're doing, and what are some of the needs that are still necessary to help make sure at the end of the day our kids are getting a good learning environment?
Larry, one, I want to encourage listeners to go to fortunedistancelearning.com if you want to take a look at the program. We have made our program public facing so that anybody can go into our Google Classrooms for grades K through 8. That's fortunedistancelearning.com. You don't have to be a member of our school. You don't have to enroll in our school, but you can go in and see for yourself what the program looks like. I think one very important thing is that you have to put your best teacher talent in front of students. Distance learning gives you an opportunity to do that. It's important that school systems or schools very carefully curate their content. So for example, our Department of Curriculum Instruction has an editorial board that we've just developed where we screen teacher video and content before we put it up before students. And then the classroom teacher plays the role of almost like a TA in a graduate school setting or in a college setting, where you have your main professor deliver the instruction, and then you're broken down into smaller sections, and your TA goes through the content with you. So we have centrally curated instructional materials. What we didn't want to do is put our staff in jeopardy by delivering people a bunch of packets. And so we have, out of necessity, mastered some of the technology to allow students to do student work using their tech tools through Google Forms and through and to turn in work to teachers through their Google Classroom. Our Google Hangouts are where we're having discussion settings. Now, we learned from some schools that we studied in New York, the Bronx Charter Academy for the Arts, that we can provide instruction in the arts in this format. So our music teachers provide assignments. Our science teachers provide hands-on assignments that you can do in your kitchen. One of the things that I'm learning is that, parents really at this moment in time need to take advantage of the fact that you have a choice. You have a choice of where to send your child to school. Large systems may be struggling, delivering a consistent program. But the schools underneath that system may have a strong program. And that's why you have to look at the individual school. Right now, I'm really thinking about kids who are ready for kindergarten and are going to start school in this environment. You can have a strong indication of what people are going to do in the future based on what they're doing right now. And I have a sense of urgency for Black parents to choose their child's school well, because I don't anticipate that this is just an August and September issue. We're preparing as if this situation with distance learning and with basically COVID-19 recovery is going to last for the next 18 months to 2 years. We're reading the CDC reports to say, how are we going to safely get kids back to school? And what does that look like? Does that look like a staggered start time? Does that look like smaller class sizes? Does that look like a hybrid program where we just anticipate that parts of it are always going to be distance learning until we get through the COVID-19 crisis? What does it look like for the schools to become an extension of the public health system? Are we supposed to be taking kids' temperatures? Is our staff supposed to be in masks and gloves? Are schools going to have the same access to that type of equipment that the healthcare system does? Our underlying assumption in this is that people in schools have been identified as essential workers. That's why we're all still getting paid. So the bargain is that we're all still going to work, and we work the same day that you would work if you were in a school setting. Those are some things that we are thinking about. But my fundamental thing I want to come back to is that parents have a choice of where to send their children to school. And now is the urgent time to be looking at how your school responded to this crisis, and to pick the school environment that has been the most responsive. That's what I think Black parents need to do.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate that. Daryl, if you could, so much of our economy and our world revolves around our ability to educate our children. You're talking about parents, those that have the ability to, let's say they have the ability to work from home right now and they're homeschooling their kids. But if schools don't get back going, and if we don't get children back in the classroom, those parents can't go back to work. Share with us, from your perspective, the challenges that are facing African American families in particular in trying to make sure that they advocate properly and make sure that they have opportunities to get their kids in the classroom. How do you see it from your perspective?
Well, I think Dave Gordon is right in the sense that we have to make sure that our parents get the kind of equipment they need to provide support to their children. When the handout of computers happened, it was thought that each kid would get their own individual computer. And in too many schools, that did not happen. Computers inventories became low, and so families got one computer. So if you have one computer per family and 4 kids, it's very, very difficult to keep up. And so what we have to go back and do is we have to go back and find out who got what, when, and where, and make sure that every kid, as we promised, gets a computer, and then have all the resources that go with it, with easy access to supports. When a student can't get on a Zoom classroom situations and they're just having difficulty, how do we get them support so they can get it figured out, so that they can gain the routines necessary so that those things don't happen? When parents don't get the services they need, who do they go to after that to ensure that they're going to get what they need? And then we have to make school much more meaningful, a distance learning meaningful. We can't simply say everybody starts, you don't lose a grade. your grade can only go up. It's so nebulous when you do that, that sometimes you take the importance out of school. And so when you ask students to do work on Monday in an asynchronous manner, you wonder why the work wasn't turned in on Friday, because kids still have management issues. I mean, we've changed, their lives in a sense, and we've required them to do something totally different than what they're used to. And so I like platforms that enable teachers to look in the eyes of kids. And if we add meaningfulness to these kinds of platforms that require kids to be in front of teachers, I think we can reduce some of the weight that parents presently carry in some of our schools in the city. The other thing that I think is really important, we had a problem with cultural responsiveness before COVID. And I don't think it's going to improve under COVID unless we actually pay attention to the skills that teachers need to have in order to have conversations with African American families, Latino families, etc. There's still a reluctance. I see it in my student teachers all the time. Mr. White, do you mean I really got to make a phone call? I mean, people want to take the easy way out too often and send that email. But in culturally responsive training, we all know that there's got to be a connection between home and school. There's got to be value. There's got to be expectations on both sides, and that they have to understand that they're in it together. Burbank did something that was really interesting. They hosted a student panel. They wanted to know how students felt about the learning that they were getting. And students under 18, they'll just tell anything. They don't care. They'll just tell it. The student says, hey, I'm not getting my work done because, hey, I check in sometimes. It's intermittent, but, and I'm always behind, And if I don't understand it, guess what kids say? I ain't gonna do it. If I don't understand it, I ain't gonna do it. And so we got to bridge that gap as well. How do we get resources to kids who are struggling in their classrooms? And then some kids are being overwhelmed. They tell us they're overwhelmed. They got big packets of stuff that they are being asked to do, and they just simply can't get it done. So I think that we have to go back. We have to look at where we are now, what we've done, and what those experiences are. And then we have to reshape what it is we need to do in September. Because I, like Margaret, I believe we're going to be here for the next year.
Yeah.
And so we got to do what we're doing now much better.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is going to be an ongoing subject matter. This will not be the last time we discuss the challenges that are facing our students. I'd like to make sure we're mindful of time. It's 10:40, so if I could, we'd like to make sure that we make sure that everyone fills in their survey question. And then two, Dr. Fortune, if you can begin our closeout here with kind of summarizing from your perspective. And again, this won't be the last time the Observer has this conversation, because this is something that is critical for our community. But give us about a 2-minute wrap up, if you can, from your perspective on what to look forward for us as a community related to this issue.
Well, we're anxiously waiting the governor's May revision, and everything we're talking about requires a resource-rich environment. We are entering into what could be a recession that is worse than the Great Recession. And the concern I have is, when this happened before, the way in which we respond to budget reductions, is to cut schools and to cut teachers. If we have models that require teachers to be more creative, that require reduced class sizes for social distancing, you actually need more teachers, not fewer teachers. If we have models that require tighter coordination with parents in the home, to make parents the full partners that we've always wanted them to be, that costs more money, not less money. But I'm concerned that what is required in this moment for COVID-19 recovery, both in terms of economic recovery and the recovery of our schools, we are about to enter into an environment where the very resources that we need will not be available to us. So I think we have to push our lawmakers to make choices, even in this budget crisis that is confronting us, that protects schools, just like you would protect hospitals, because parents can't go back to work if kids don't go back to school, and kids have to go back to school safely. I would say what I mean by parents have a choice of where they send their child to school. Within school districts like Sac City, you have school choice. It might be hard to exercise, but you also can choose a public charter school. That's what Fortune School is. We aren't having labor strife in implementing distance learning because that's not a system of governance that we have. We don't have a labor union that is telling teachers that they can't do everything they might want to do for a child in this setting. We are all on the same page from top to bottom and completely dedicated to making sure that the kids and the families have what they need. And I think that, last week was Teacher Appreciation Week, and a lot of teachers in a lot of different settings are working really hard. We have to make sure that for Black kids that the system itself isn't working against their ability to get the services that they need in this moment.
Wonderful sled. Mr. White, if you can give us kind of your summary here for about 2 minutes, please.
Yeah, I too agree that we have school districts that are working hard, and we have teachers that are working hard, and we have parents who are hanging in there. We have students that are hanging in as well. Again, that student panel that Burbank put together, one thing I thought that was really important that they indicated was that they don't fault the system and its imperfections right now. They understand that the times are desperate and the times are difficult. And so they don't fault that. They understand it, and whatever they need to do moving forward, they're willing to do that. So we have them on our side, and that's good. I think as we repackage education in September, we need to really look at, in terms of middle schools and high schools, at the 6-period day. I just think that in this new environment, that 6 periods probably is too much for us to be able to deliver services. And people may disagree, but I think it's something we have to really take a good look at. I think we could do better with a different kind of schedule that reduces the number of contexts that our distance learning platforms make possible. I also think that we need to curb and the number of students that we have in each of the classes. I just don't see a distance learning situation, even in Zoom or Google Meet, of 40, 50 kids. I just don't see that working. I think those numbers have to be lower. And I think school districts have to be mindful of that. And Margaret is right. I think we're going to need more money in this environment. I think we're going to need more teachers if we're going to be as effective as we want to be. And I think that's what our people who are planning this new system need to think about. They need to think about always kids first.
Gotcha. Mr. Gordon, if you could close us out.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I agree wholeheartedly with Margaret and Daryl as well, that schooling is more than the school experience. And we definitely need more money to give all of our kids the most positive school experience that we can. And we should lobby and advocate to do whatever it takes to make sure that happens, because this is setting us back. But I think there is a silver lining, which is that we've had the typical one-size-fits-all school factory model for so many years. And this is going to push us to reconsider that. And I think one of the main things we need to do is be much, much more intentional about working with parents and families about ways they can help their children and really partner with the schools. And to that end, I just wanted to let people know that on our SCOE website, scoe.net, we have a number of resources to help parents, videos and other chats, help parents work with their kids at home, not homeschooling, but how do you work with the school to better provide for instruction for your kids at home. Also, I think our kids are being stressed because they're not having the typical normal experience with their friends. And when they come back to school, and as we go into this period of a year, maybe 2 years, we have to be mindful that we have to attend to their mental wellness. And also on our website, we have resources around that, videos from county experts with messages to help parents. We have a blog on mental wellness and many other instructional resources, and that's scoe.net. And finally, I just want to say that all of our school people are working hard. There are glitches, there are stops and starts. They will get better. And I think we all need to work together to get through this period, but make sure that we are completely insistent on every one of our young people needs the opportunity to meet the instruction, whether it's through distance learning or directly, in the most positive possible way that will expand their opportunity. And that's our goal from the perspective of the county.
Great. Thank you very much. That will just about do it. We'd like to get one more commercial here, and then as we come back, we will close it out here.
Register for kindergarten at Tucoy Porter College Prep, a Fortune school located in Meadowview. Tucoy Porter is a tuition-free public charter school focused on closing the African American achievement gap. Our kindergarten registration fair is June 3rd at 5 p.m. Register today at fortuneschool.us/KRW/.
All right. Well, thank you again to Dr. Margaret Fortune, Dave Gordon, and Daryl White for participating in this conversation. Again, this will not be the last time. Obviously, this coronavirus has impacted our community in a multitude of ways. And rest assured, the Observer will be here ongoingly to provide forums for us to discuss issues that impact us a lot in a number of ways. Our next one, we will be addressing the economic impacts on our small businesses and nonprofit organizations. And we will continue to have this discussion moving forward as well, too. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get to many of the participant comments, but we will provide a vehicle and a forum for them to connect with our speakers moving forward. So be on the lookout. Continue to follow us on all of our social media channels. Please make sure and subscribe to the Observer print edition or to our email news. Your newspapers have also felt the impact of this coronavirus, and we are definitely trying to make sure to keep our voice nice and long and strong in the credo of the Black press, that no one else will speak for us but us. So thank you very much. Thank you for my team that also helped create this environment for us. We have Mark Freeman and Craig DeLuz, Russell Steiger, and our correspondent Fahiza Aleem as well too. Thank you all. Everyone continue to be safe, be well, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you so much.